community and partner success teams over at Startup Grind. I'm based just outside London in Berkshire, and I am delighted to be presenting you with this event, which is really focused around product market fit for your startup, presented with Mixpanel, who are one of the leading powerful self-service product analytics tools. And we have two really incredible presenters who are actually going to walk us through exactly how to find product market fit for your startup or your idea. We have Jaz Broughton, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, Jaz, who's a community manager over at Mixpanel, and Xinlin Tan, who's a solutions consultant over at Mixpanel. We are also going to be looking to take hopefully a little bit of live Q&A. If you look to your tab on the right, if you're on a laptop or a PC or MacBook, there's a Q&A button which we've opened now, which we'll be delighted to be taking some of your questions on that. And without further ado, I'd love to welcome Jaz. Maybe Jaz can switch on her camera and we can start kicking off the presentation and get them to do a little welcome. Over to you all, and I hope you all enjoy this workshop.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that introduction, Finn. We are so excited to be here. We're going to dive in. I want to be conscious of time. And as we said, as you're going through, please do not be shy with your questions. We are here to have an in-depth, practical, juicy, is what I like to call it, conversation about finding product market fit for your startup. So we'll start off with some introductions. So I'll hand over to Xinlin to introduce herself to you, and then I will too.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jaz, for the introduction. I'm Xinlin. I'm a solutions consultant at Mixpanel. Right now, I'm based in Singapore. So it's really nice to meet all of you today, and I can't wait to walk you through, what we have prepared for you for our product market fit discussion.
Amazing, Xinlin. This is amazing. I'm based in the London office, so I don't often get to spend lots of time with Xinlin. So you've got a bit of a global partnership here. I'm based east, so Essex. I'm a community manager here at Mixpanel. Prior to that, I was a customer success manager. So I have spent pretty much the last 2+ years of my life talking to people about analytics. But also outside of this, I'm a career coach, so I have a personal, deep, vested interest in entrepreneurship, all things personal development, go-to-market strategies, and more. So you've got me on one of my favorite topics today, so I'm excited to see what comes of the session. I want to start off with an agenda now that we've done those introductions. So we're going to introduce you to Mixpanel and product analytics as a whole. I am not going to pretend that I knew what product analytics was 5 or 6 years ago, right? We all have a day one when we learn about something for the first time. So we're going to go into that. Then we're going to explore product market fit in its entirety, why it matters, why you should care, how you can go about it, and then how you can use product analytics, how you can leverage product analytics really to find product market fit. And then I will hand over to Xinlin, who will show you in real time how you can do this for yourself inside Mixpanel. So I want to encourage you again, do not be shy with the questions. I can see we've got a few kicked off, so I'll be collecting those as I go along as well. But ultimately, a reason why we're having this conversation in the first place is because we understand, if you're anything like me, you love learning from the lessons of those that have gone before you, right? We're all subscribed to the newsletters, we're plugged into the communities where we're able to have candid conversations about why businesses fail. And there are many businesses that fail not because it wasn't a good idea, not because the leadership team wasn't in place, not even because they had the funding, right? There are companies that have the funding and still fail. But we're having this conversation because one of the biggest pitfalls that you can actually avoid is you finding product market fit. So there are companies that fail because they either didn't find it, didn't prioritize it, or didn't find it soon enough, right? I've worked in an organization where the burn rate, right? The burn rate was going at a completely different pace to finding product market fit, to iterating the product, to innovating based on feedback, right? They were out of step with each other. And ultimately that meant that the company's still around, but they had to downsize the team drastically overnight because it was like, we can't, it's survival. It's survival. Have we found product market fit? No. Do we need to find it? Yes, yesterday. So I want to really emphasize that around product market fit, we're going to show you some practical things that you can do. Of course, we will be showing you this in the Mixpanel project. You'll get access to a sample data set in the follow-up email so you can play around, but you can do this yourself. I want you to think about the data that you have access to today or you would like to have access to. I also want to be open to the fact that some people are in the development phase, pre-seed, right? Maybe you've got the wireframes, you've got it kind of set up, or, you know, walkthroughs on Figma. This is all super applicable to you. And I actually want to congratulate you if you're at those early stages and you're in this room today, because you can build this in from the beginning. So let's start off with an introduction to Mixpanel and product analytics and kind of why we exist in the first place. And I'm going to ask you to excuse my French, but ultimately, most of the world is making decisions based on their gut. They're guessing or it's their gut. Huge decisions, seismic decisions, organizational decisions, decisions about product deprecation, product launch, decisions about which teams to invest in, right? All of these decisions that take place in your business, these are being made by guessing or using their gut. Speaking to one customer and going, yes, let's build it for that one customer. And ultimately, companies on mobile and web are using bullshit metrics like page views and installs. And I want to reiterate, mobile and web, right? This is not me just talking about website. This is folks with applications, just looking at page views and installs and nothing in between. And with that kind of level of analytics or insight, it's so hard to be sophisticated, but even harder for you to find product market fit. Again, I want you to sit in your own shoes, think about your own product, your own platform, and I want you to think about data, right? These days, businesses have mountains of data that's generated from people just like you and me using their products on all kinds of devices. Like I said, not just a website, not just page views, from apps to websites and smart devices, the list goes on. I want you to think about your own digital footprint today. And as Finn said, you know, it could be good morning, good evening, good day. For me, it's morning. I've already used my fitness tracker. I've already popped into a little bit of social media. I've also started my work day, which means that I'm on Slack, Google, Mixpanel community, Mixpanel itself. The list goes on, and I'm just one person. I am one person. That's my personal digital footprint today. So imagine that in aggregate. And the problem that most companies have is that using all of that data through an iterative product development cycle is complex, to say the least. Right? It's fragmented if it's being caught at all, or it's just not being tracked. Every day, myself and my colleagues, we speak to folks and, you know, I say, are you tracking any exit intent activities, right? Are you tracking when they hit the account details page or check my subscription page? And they go, no, it's not being tracked. How can we develop the product if we're not capturing that whole journey? And it's really, really important to understand that people who build products want to understand what to invest in and then how these things are working. So it's not just throwing it out there and, again, going back to that gut feeling and that guesswork, it's knowing for sure how is it working, both from a health standpoint, right? Engineering teams want to know if something's down before the customer, ideally before the customers. You know, I like to think of platforms like Monzo, and I used to open my app to them telling me what is essentially bad news, but find a way for that to be a point of delight, because I loved the fact that they were so in tune with the platform that they could tell me that this part of it's down and that if I want to use it, it'll be back up sooner, they'll be giving an update. That's not a gut feeling. You can't build that experience off gut feeling. You have to have that data. And really, even sophisticated, highly sophisticated companies like Uber, Expedia, and Indeed, all of them struggled with the exact problem. So I say this to say that you're not a unicorn. Unicorn's probably not the wrong term because it means something different to all of us in this room, but you are not a special snowflake if you are struggling with product market fit, because everybody, it's a rite of passage. And ultimately, when it comes to what we do, what we get up each morning and support people with, is helping people to understand exactly how your product caters to your users. And ultimately, we have this conversation because you're all building products for someone. You're not just building it for yourself. Even if the business starts off as that, right? You've got a personal pain point that you want to resolve, or a pain point that's close to your heart. At a certain point, you need to find the strangers that resonates with. And as much as back in the days of brick and mortar, we could have a good old chat at the till or in the showroom, we want to be able to do this through analytics. You can't physically sit down and talk to all your users or even your total addressable market. You can't have those sustainable conversations. And that's essentially where we come in as Mixpanel. We've built a tool that allows you to see what these users are doing, that allow you to see exactly how your product is catering to your users and what they're doing in response, right? That push and pull of releases, of iteration, of updating the journey. And we've made this self-serve so that even before you're even tempted to guess, you can just open up Mixpanel and ask the actual question and confidently have that data to support your decisions. I think a few years back, everybody was talking about being data-led, right? And one thing that we say around here is being data-informed. We empower teams. We're not creating a tool that replaces humans. No, we want to empower you with the data to make the decisions on a day-to-day basis, no matter what seat you sit in the organization. And this becomes at the very basis, right? We're unlocking that data, but it's up to you. It's always going to be up to you what you do with the insight. It's always up to you what you do with the feedback. It's always up to you what you do with any shifts in the market or whatever it may be. And to that end, it's really important for us to understand that it's an evolution. It is a journey. So I'm going to go into what that journey looks like. And again, I can see the questions, so please keep those coming in. I'm going to actually address them. I'm going to actually come to them. Your questions, both of your questions, Lily and Hamza, are actually inside the content. So I'll move forward to them and then pick them up when we get to there. So I want to let you know I can still see it. Please keep those coming in. So let's talk about sophistication. And again, this is not a race. This is not a race. You're racing against yourself at all times, right? This is a steady climb to the top. You're never advanced right from the beginning. So that's why I'm not even showing you advanced at the moment. We're going to sit here in basic. And what this really looks like is you're getting that data, right? It's not guesswork. You know your usage, you know your traffic, you even know your traffic sources. These are the questions that you're answering at the basic level of you really, really getting into your product analytics. And it's about understanding what you want to track in the first instance. And this can be thought about, like I said, from the design phase, from using your beta, right? Your founding members, your founding users, or even your wireframes. You know what you've designed. So no matter what stage of release it is, it's important for you to be thoughtful about what am I tracking in the first instance? Because what you track in terms of events, so Mixpanel is events-based tracking. So as I said, if I was to jump onto my watch woke me up this morning, I clicked off the alarm to say that I'm awake. That is an event. Somebody somewhere, if they do have product analytics, is looking at that to say this morning so far, 50% of our user base have actually got up when they wanted to. Right? Let me keep things simple. This is at the very, very basic level. And as you can see on the slides, there's some questions that you want to ask yourself at this stage. But to get to the next level, this is now improving to intermediate. And this is where we're taking that data into product decisions. This is you evangelizing that data across the organization. You're using dashboards to spread it. You're having data as part of every single meeting in the organization. And you're sharing that. You're sharing that. And this is really, really important because then you're using that evidence to iterate. You're even starting to build metrics into your launch plans, into your release plans, into your product roadmaps, right? You're saying, right, if we take a bet on building, I think one conundrum that a lot of people have is, moving from a web platform to building an app. Okay, if we're going to launch an iOS app, what does that look like? Yes, how many people do we want to have on the wait list for that? But what do we want to see in terms of that first week launch metrics? What do you want to see in terms of retention? Do we want to see the app not only create another way for people to access it, but do we want to see it move the needle on retention? Because that's what we're looking at intermediate. You've got those users, you've got those customers, right? It's now time to segment them. Who are you? Where did you come from? What's your behavior? What patterns are you bringing? What are you finding valuable in the platform that I maybe have overlooked, right? Let's put a growth marketing hat on. You market under certain messages and themes. Is that what they stay for? How are they behaving when it's time to upgrade, when it's time to change the business model to freemium, from freemium to a paid subscription? These are the things that you're really digging into in intermediate. And it's really, really important for you in this stage as well to start thinking about that stack. Intermediate is usually the stage where we start to see people connect their product analytics to communications platforms. So, you know, engaging with your CRM, sending messages and campaigns based on user behavior, not just a newsletter or a product update, right? You're getting a little bit deeper and showing that you're listening and you're leveraging that data. And then we go to advanced, and this is where it's time to get more sophisticated. And not only are you looking at, you know, the what, which we were looking at basic, what happening, what are they doing? You're looking at who at the intermediate. Who is that person? What are those segments? Where are they coming from? What are those sort of clusters that I can look at? But here you're starting to answer the questions of why. Why did this feature work and that one didn't? Why did we see a higher adoption rate of this one and not that one? Why did we see a higher retention rate from a particular campaign top of the funnel in that one than the other one? You're starting to do those comparisons. You're starting to do those A/B tests, starting to look at different user journeys, right? In intermediate, you realize your onboarding flow is cool. It's okay. It's all right. It's doing the job. But when it comes to advanced, you're now saying, how can we up level this? How can we shorten the time to value? Right? How can we create a really held customer experience? This is when you're going a little bit deeper and you're looking at conversion, engagement, and retention. And you're communicating this across the team. Because remember, in intermediate, we started to roll those metrics into our day-to-day conversation. So we're continuing to do that. Data is now informing our strategy. And that's your data. And one thing to point out is that most people get stuck at intermediate for a long time, because it's really easy to pause at intermediate because it's way more data than many of us are used to. I'm going to be honest with that, right? We can look at retention, we can look at segments, we can look at things like that. So we think that that's good, that's great, but we're not pushing the needle. We're not iterating with the data there. So it's really important to know that advanced exists and that you can get to that as an organization, and how important that is in looking at and finding that product market fit. What we found when we spoke to product teams is some percentages that I honestly think are high. I'm not surprised by them, but we want to see these lower. These percentages represent what folks struggled to understand. And this is a huge call to action for us as Mixpanel. But this is a huge call to action across the industry. How can you know that what you're doing is successful as a product marketer, as a product manager, as a product team, as a founder, right? As I know some of you will be, as a founder making those decisions, liaising with your engineering, your development team. How can you make those seismic decisions if you don't have a clear view on what is making your product more sticky? What is causing folks to churn, and at which point are they churning? Conversion rates, right? You're throwing money, right? Whether that's money in terms of resource, whether that's money in terms of project, you're throwing money into a black hole and hoping that it comes back with a bunch of users that are like your ideal client, but nothing, you have no view on what's happening in between. And that's scary for us. And I want to share these percentages because I want to invite you in this moment for yourself. You don't have to share this with the room. This is for you. I want you to ask yourself, how sure are you of these percentages? How sure are you of these key metrics, these key parts of your user journey? Because I want to encourage you and empower you in the fact that you deserve to be 1,000% sure of these. Right? And nothing's ever promised. Don't get me wrong, right? There's a wonderful quote I love that, you know, if you torture data long enough, it can confess to anything. Right? We say that jokingly around here at Mixpanel. But I want to say that you deserve to have access to this. And whether that's in a tool like Mixpanel, or whether you're piecing it together with your back end, you've got your database, you've maybe got a BI tool, you're maybe getting reporting from somewhere else, right? I want to empower you to piece that together so you can answer those questions, because I want you to be successful in your business, in your role, in your part of the strategy, your part of product development and coming to market, or establishing yourself in the market, right? And this is it. This is it. Marketing tools are usually where everyone begins. It's the easiest to kind of set up out of the box, but it only provides a narrow view. Again, it gives you that black hole. You can see the traffic, you can see the acquisition, you can see conversion from a campaign, but can you see what those folks are doing? Can you see the lifetime value of the user? Can you see enough data to begin to make predictions of when people might churn? Or some of the unattractive parts of your platform or your customer experience, right? All of that is guesswork until they either upgrade or they churn out. That does not make a customer lifecycle. That's not the loop that we look at, or the endless process that we want to have. It's not the flywheels that we love looking at and using. And this is why it's important for us to then add to this equation engagement and retention. We have to look at that piece in between, because otherwise it's very easy for us to get a leaky bucket. Tons of stuff coming in, right? We can talk about, we love it when somebody asks us, how many new users have you had? Like, what have you seen in terms of growth in your app, right? Shiny percentages. And then we get asked, what's the retention? And when I say we, I'm under no illusion. We've got a lot of clients that use the data on engagement and retention, as well as traffic and acquisition, to pitch for funding, to have conversations with investors. It's so important to understand that you deserve to have all of those metrics and feel just as confident in all of them. So engagement and retention needs to be added to the equation so you can get that comprehensive view. Okay. All of that sounds magic, right? Sounds fantastical. It sounds like you hit a button and you get all these numbers out, but it's not that simple. We know it's not that simple. And at its beginning, it is very much about you having an approach to it, an approach of innovation, approach of iteration, but in a focused way, right? In a focused way. And I think we've got some questions on that as well that I'm definitely going to dive into. And you've mentioned NPS. We're going to touch on that too. But one of the models that we love, build, measure, learn, loop, and it's from Eric Ries, that you can look this up, you can read up on it. And again, this is an example of one of the beautiful flywheels that we like to look at. But I want to be very honest here and say you only have about 3 to 10 chances to get this right. You only get so many chances to learn from your mistakes, right? And when I say learn from your mistakes, this is us tapping into that growth mindset to say, I will figure it out someday. My retention is here. It's going to be here at some point. But it's about understanding, what are those levers? What are those buttons that we're pressing at the front of the ship, right? For things to change and to up level. We're really looking at measuring and learning. And that's what we need to have as the foundation of finding product market fit. Is a belief that we can find it. And the way that we find it is through going through this constant iteration and innovation. It is through us actually understanding that we're gonna find out what moves the needle and do more of that. I'm gonna find out what's actually not and address it head on, because you're a learning organization. It's really, really, really important to understand that. So going into product market fit, what is it and why it matters? I'm going to pause here because I want to make sure before we go deeper, I'm collecting some of those questions there. So Lily, you've got a great question here. From a product analytics standpoint, for a direct-to-consumer lifestyle mobile application, what would you say might be the top indicator of product market fit? So this question, I like it because you've given me specifics, and I like anybody who's literally writing a question as we speak, give me those specifics, because I want to know, are you direct to consumer? Are you B2B? What does it look like? So as a mobile application, I'm not going to say that there's going to be a top indicator of product market fit. You're going to have a combination of things, but what you really want to be looking at again is that retention and engagement, and you decide what that definition looks like. What we would always say with this, and I'll ask one of my colleagues to pop it in the chat or in the follow-up, we do have a resource on creating a product analytics strategy. And that's a really great way of understanding product market fit, because you have something at the top, which could be your daily active users, right? You're looking at that consistent behavior that is a forward-looking metric as opposed to a metric that's maybe quite static. So that can give you an overall view. But as you're looking at things and you're looking at acquisition, look at those channels, but also then look at what are people engaging in once they get in? What is that time to value? But there's a number of metrics that you want to go into. So I'm going to be honest with you that there isn't necessarily a one. There will be a few, and I would say 3 to 5 that you should be looking at on a weekly, if not daily basis, to really understand what's going on in your audience. Okay. Hopefully that helps. If you have an additional question, pop that in there, please. Okay, question from Hamza. What core metrics should a startup track or focus to measure the progress of product market fit? So it's everything that we mentioned before. Have a steady retention rate. Have an eye on your daily or weekly active users. Depending on your business model and how you've designed it, you will have some predictions as to what the cadence is for folks to be using it. It cannot just be logins. Whatever we do here, we don't want to talk about just logins or signing up, right? We want to look at that forward leading metrics. We also then want to reverse engineer stuff and look at where folks are coming from and what they are actually engaging with to get value. But please feel free to add in a little more detail around what's your business model, what's your market there, because it will vary based on your product. And to that end, to anyone else who's wondering this question, I want you, if you've got a pen and paper, write it down. How does your business make money? Okay, we're going to be blunt. How does your business make money? Does your business make money based on the audience size? Does it make money based on, a lot of fintech platforms, it's based on the number of transactions. A lot of other platforms, it's a flat subscription no matter how much they use it. Okay, great. If it's a subscription, what are they buying for it? What is the pain point that they're trying to solve? Right? And we're going to go into this into the next section, but I want you to ask these questions in their simplest terms. Why does anybody use your app? And how do they come to do that? Because then that will help you understand the journey that you are tracking and what good looks like. That's the last question. What does good look like in terms of a user? Who is your ideal user? Right? And I'm in the marketing team, so we can go down the road of personas, but I want you to think of real people. And if you haven't met real people that use your platform, please do. I want to encourage you to speak with them and get in their own language what it is that attract them or kept them around. Right? We don't ask questions for fun when we're building products. Everything can be insight. But you really want to understand those core questions and then get the data that actually confirms that or tracks that journey. So if you have a platform that has 3 different ways that you make people's lives easier, okay, and I'm just being super generic with it, track the engagement against those 3 different things. Then again, go back to the slide that I presented on like basic, intermediate, and advanced. When you're at intermediate, you're starting to understand who's the weekly active users of this feature versus this feature versus that feature. Because then as we go through, and I'm going to explain this, you could maybe find a key lever that shows you that if folks are using 2 or more of your features, they're good to go. They're highly likely to retain. But again, you need to see this in the data. Don't be afraid to make a hypothesis and then use the data to understand where that sits and if it is true, if it is valid. So hopefully that helps. Next question we have here is from Michaela. As a founder of your startup, your day is split among tons of tasks. Measuring multiple metrics can become overwhelming and dilute your attention. There are very few gold metrics that really tell you if your product is serving well your customers. What do you think about NPS in helping understanding the product market fit before throwing dollars in advertising campaigns? This is a great question. So we're going to bring up NPS. NPS you can put in your product analytics strategy, but do not put it at the top of your tree. Please do not. 2 reasons. Or 3. I could go on about this for days. Net Promoter Score asks you how likely are you to tell someone else about this. The reality is if I love your product, I'm telling nobody about it because I want it to be my best kept secret. Okay? Can we be frank in this room? So to a certain extent, there's parts of NPS that are a little bit problematic, right? But it can be an indicator of hand raisers. So many of you, depending on the stage of your platform as the founder of your startup, your NPS score, the people who take the time to fill it in are probably more engaged than most. And whether they put a 0 or whether they put another score, right? If they're at one end or the other end, there are still people who have decided to say, I care about your product enough or use it enough to give you feedback. So the kind of key leverage that I would say with NPS is to get that qualitative data. That is important. Please do not just sit at a dashboard and think that that is the end of you finding product market fit. If they don't like it, if they wouldn't recommend it, get on a call and find out why. If they would, get on a call and find out why, and then invite them to be part of your beta group or your super users or your council of advisor, whatever it is. So that's the place that things like NPS, CSAT, any other customer feedback, churn surveys, if you do not have those set up, please set them up. Even if it's just an email that sends them a Google form, get that data in that sense, so that you then have the qualitative detailed data of what you did wrong for them to score a 0, for instance. And then from that, not only those conversations can start to give you ideas around throwing the dollars in campaigns. Let's be honest about it. When you do a campaign, yes, you have your market, but who are you talking to? It can help you sort of segment and speak to the value when you find that product market fit or you're finding it. And this is me just spitballing, you can run a campaign that's split in 3 directions. You can have 3 different messages going to 3 different segments, talking about 3 different problems that your product solves. So then naturally you're going to want to track the conversion of that. But I want to encourage you, because it's about product market fit. Yeah, you converted. That's great. That's fine, right? I can get you to click through and give your email address. But can I get you to stick around? 6 weeks later from those 3 different campaigns, who's sticking around? Which segment of the market is fitting with my product through their behavior, not just through top of the funnel. Okay, I've got them in. So these are just some things to think about, but NPS can be in there, but please do not have it as your guiding light. Okay, I'm going to answer one more question and then move forward, just because as I skimmed through, I think in Xinlin's walkthrough, she could actually take some of these and use them as examples. So Hamza, what core metrics should a hardware non-tech consumer product track or focus to measure the progress of product market fit? So if it is hardware non-tech, you can still get a lot of analytics from your website, your e-commerce platform, or how you're doing your sales. You would probably rely a lot more around that qualitative data. So you would look at, yes, you would look at sales volumes, but you'd have to look at where they are coming from. And ideally, you've got a way for that. But also in terms of, I'm trying to think with this as well, beyond sales, what else you'd get feedback, maybe you'd get reviews around things, case studies, customer stories. One of the things that hardware, depending on what your hardware is, what folks then tend to do is create communities around it. And sometimes they can start off as support communities, but they are another listening ear to what's going on and understanding the use cases and how people are leveraging it beyond the point of purchase. So almost that black hole of you purchased and you could disappear off the face of the earth, creating a way for folks to stay engaged. So whether that is through an actual online forum, whether that's through a newsletter, whether that's through just looking at who's updating their hardware or anything like that. I'd need to know a little bit more around what it is so we can brainstorm a bit, but you want to look at the metrics that you can get ultimately when it comes to a hardware or non-tech product, as well as leveraging everything that you've got within your website around attribution and things like that. Okay, I'll move forward. Product market fit, the reason why we're here. What is it? Why does it matter? So what is product market fit really? What is it at the end of the day? Here are some things to bear in mind. It is about you identifying the features you need to build, the audience that will care, and the business model required to entice to buy your product. Each of those things in those lovely, lovely colors are points of testing, are points of iteration, are points that you can analyze around, right? When I spoke about engagement, I used that example. I was talking about features. If you've got 3, which one do they like? If you're beta testing 2 in an A/B test way, when you did your testing, which one did they prefer? And then audience that's likely to care, we're getting that attribution. We're even getting users to self-segment. It's not an accident that when you sign up for certain products, they get you to tell them what team you're in or what role you're in. I get all the time with my own business. I'm signing up to a conference and they want to know if I'm the founder, if I'm the director, if I'm the marketing lead, if I'm other. This is not by accident. They want to know we put something out there, who responded, who showed up. And then again, the business model that's required. Right? We spoke about freemium, we talk about subscriptions, we talk about one-off purchase, we then talk about support communities, enhanced support, VIP, silver levels, gold levels, enterprise levels. All of those different things can be played around and tweaked to get the right proposition for the right person. And the thing to remember is that a great team plus lousy market wins, right? Lousy team, great market wins. Great team, great market, something special happens. And this is what we are talking about here, because I know for some of you, it's about understanding as well. Do I have the team to do this iteration? Do I have an engineering team or a developer who gets that this is what I'm driving for, that this is what I want to find out? And it's really about getting to that place where you address a market that really, really desperately wants your product, that everything aligns, right? Everything is sparkling, the stars are shining, the proposition is solid and secure, and you can just feel more, right? You spoke about spending money on campaigns. You can double down on what works with confidence. The other thing to think about again is if you're really good at execution, but then they don't want it, then you also have no choice of winning. So it's twofold. It's getting your approach and your strategy for finding product market fit and executing that really well, but also ensuring that you're tapped into, oh my goodness, my product doesn't actually help the people that we initially thought, but we found another segment. Let's pivot to talk to them and see what happens. What we think it looks like, straight line on the left, where it actually is a bit more of a squiggle, okay? Bit more of a space where you understand that everything is subject to change and you're willing to innovate and take those risks, take those calculated risks, those strategic risks. It's never straightforward. And as I said before, companies like Uber, companies like Expedia, they had to go through this journey. They had to have those iterations. Even ourselves, when we think about our digital footprint, you can open up any app today and you could probably tell me what it was like 6 months ago. Iterating. And again, these are things to think of as you move forward, as we avoid the failure that we thought about at the beginning of this session. We found this wonderful diagram that shows the top 10 reasons for startup failure. Half of them, more than half of them, are related to product market fit issues. You're creating a product that nobody needs, right? You take too long to find product market fit, so you run out of cash. Right? These are things that are happening every single day. You have a product that doesn't have a business model. I still speak to people today in the Mixpanel community who are, I'm just like, yeah, so if you leverage that in your page users and that page users, we haven't got any yet. Okay, when are we going to get those? When are we going to show people a business model so we don't just build a massive audience of people who expect free things? That's not how we pay our development teams. Poor marketing. We don't know who we're talking to. We haven't been strategic about recycling and understanding who our current users are and finding more of those and seeing which ones are more valuable in terms of LTV, in terms of, customer acquisition as well. That's something you want to keep down as a rate, and then ignoring the customers. And this is where things like NPS and listening to your users, as well as watching them. I want you to watch them as well as you listen to them in the data. And this really matters because you want to be in that sweet spot in the middle. You want to make a product that people want. You want to be able to make a profit off it. I think so often people forget the dictionary definition of a business: providing a product or a service in exchange for revenue and a profit. We're in the profit-making business at some point. Even if your route to market is through taking investment, you still want to be able to say, right, okay, we're on track for a margin. Even if it's a negative margin, have it on a spreadsheet. How close are we? And again, we don't want that leaky bucket. We know what's happening in between them coming in and maybe them coming out or them upgrading. So, quick question, and I'd love for you to put it in the chat. I'd love to hear people's views. What do you think is the most important in product market fit? Which of these? And you can just put a number. You can just put a number. We can be super efficient today because I know we've got questions and the full demo to go through. But what do you think? So we've got a few threes, we've got a few fours. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for taking part in question time. I shall not leave you in suspense. The answer is 5. Acquisition and engagement. It is acquisition and engagement, because that will lead to retention. You can't retain what you haven't acquired. Engagement is wonderful, but if you just have the same, 2,000 users for the next year, you're not an attractive investment. Well, depending on your business model, actually, I stand corrected. Depending on your business model, folks are being upgraded on that sense, but we need to make sure that we've got both. And in that sense, I want to bust some of the key myths that we see around product market fit. Product market fit is not the straight line. It's not a big bang. We found it. We're going to hold on to it. In fact, be scared if you ever feel like that is truly what's happening, because this can also lead to you not continuously tweaking that and going back on it. I know there's a lot of stuff to think about as a founder, as part of a product team, but it's really, really important to know that it is not a one and done sort of situation. As with most things, as with your business strategy, right? Wrap that into your quarterly meetings, your quarterly forecast, your annual planning. Make sure that a check-in on product market fit is there. Make sure that you're keeping an eye, and I'm saying this from a point of opportunity. Keep an eye on the segments that are rising. Keeping an eye on product market fit as you evolve the features, because you're going to evolve the features, right? That's how you continue to delight those customers. Also, it's not obvious. It's not blatantly obvious. Sorry, it's not blatantly obvious. It's not blatantly obvious when you have it. You have to go looking for it. And once you achieve it, you can't lose it. Not correct. Right? Again, think back to any app, any platform in life. Think back to 6 months ago. 6 months ago, did you like it as much as you did now? Did you like it more or less, right? Were they speaking to a different market? It's all evolving. And then the last thing, a myth, is that once you have product market fit, you don't have to sweat the competition. No such thing. Once you have the product market fit, yes, still keep an eye on competition. You still have to look at that, because you will never know whether they found it or whether they've not. The bottom line is, if you're talking to the same market, you still need to show up each day and show them why you are the perfect choice for them. Product market fit, pre-product. Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Willie. You have to keep an eye on it. You have to. Just because someone, just because you've tapped in a market doesn't mean that somebody else isn't tapping into the exact same market. Right? Pre-product, visible. Their pupils dilate when they see it. I know for some of you, you've already done an experience or an event like this, but for some of you, this is ahead. The big reveal, you get the people on the wait list on a screen or in a room, and you say, this is the roadmap. This is what you're going to get when you update in the platform, when you open our link to get the beta, right? Visible excitement. These are people. Remember, we create things for people, for users, and people are willing to queue for early access. Right? When you crack it pre-product, this is what it looks like. You have a wait list of folks who are like, I don't care when it comes out. I want it. You did a trailer video, a teaser. You were evangelizing it by just talking to people about the solution. They don't know what it's going to look like or what platform it's going to be on. You're just saying, I've got a solution coming. And then when we go post-product, the users stick around. We've got that stickiness. They are retaining. They would be disappointed if your product goes away. And I'd say this is the question. This is a question that we answer when we look at engagement metrics. If I pulled the plug today, how many people would be disappointed, and how deeply disappointed would they be? How inefficient would I be making their lives if I took away this tool? You'll then see exponential organic growth. And as much as we talk about paid, organic growth should get some airtime, because the reality is there are platforms out there that have spent nothing. It's all been organic, because they cracked the pre-product product market fit and post-product. They kept it. And they've got a bunch of folks evangelizing. They've got an army of referrals and referrers. They've got a network. They've got an active community of people who would do nothing more, who love nothing less than actually saying, look, this platform changed my life. This product changed my life. I will tell everybody about it from the rooftops. And then ultimately, you're getting cost-efficient growth. You're not having to feed the machine to get the growth, because your proposition, again, is solid. It's a no-brainer solution, and customers clamor for it. So these are some things to really think about. And as well, there's more to think about. So as I said, surveys, right? So this is where we start to talk about NPS. Bring this in, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be the Net Promoter Score. It could be the Sean Ellis survey on the left. You could have a question that is more relevant to your product or the problem you think you're solving at this particular time. But I want to encourage you, get that qualitative data to match up with that analytics and that insight, because there are parts that you may be missing. You also then want to look at user retention, and this is a great curve. This is a great visual of showing you where you're at in terms of percentage wise, because you can, these are metrics, these are numbers, they can move up, down, right? You want to understand that stickiness, the user activation. Like I said, when we did the poll, the answer was 5, right? It's acquisition and it's engagement. Am I forgetting I have your platform? Is my phone telling me that I could clear space by deleting your app? Is that what's happening right now? You want to make sure that you are in the habit zone and you're being open about that. You're showing people the best results are found if you're logging in daily, if you're tracking daily, or if you're tracking weekly, or you're logging in monthly. And that goes into us looking at those user states, looking at that life cycle, defining what retention actually is. What's the retained event that you're tracking around, or events, plural, because it could be a combo. You've designed your product, you know it best. But from the point of sign up to the point of them being engaged, what are those states? How many people are in there? How long are they staying there? When we look at some of the platforms that we know and love, right? They've got examples of aha moment metrics. Time to value means defining the value, and that can look like an aha moment. For Slack, 3 messages exchanged within 7 days. They have a metric. They know how many people are hitting that aha moment on a weekly, daily basis, right? They're tracking that as a leading metric. And this is what I mean when I say at the top of your analytics strategy, have something like that. Habit moments, right? Habit moments, 4 times in 28 days, 4 days in 28, 3 weeks, 12. You know how you've designed it. Airbnb, 2 bookings a year. You know what that looks like for your platform. You know what you've designed it to be, and you should then be able to match that up with what you can see in the data is actually happening. So that's where I want to leave you and hand over to Xinlin to show you what I've been talking about and how to do it.
All right, thanks, Jess, for the introduction. That was really helpful. For today, I think what we will want to cover firstly, let me just quickly share my screen. All right. So we will have a live example today. Sorry. Give it a while. All right, we are up. Okay, so for today, we will have like a quick context that we will lay down before we go into the demo. What we have over here in this example is we have a company called Mixtube, and we are trying to grow some market share. Right now, Mixtube is a video streaming platform, and how it tries to differentiate from the rest of the competition is having a niche movie selection and a video selection over here. So how can we proceed to find product market fit using Mixpanel? First thing over here that I wanted to walk through are some metrics that we have in our dashboards. We briefly talked a little bit around different types of areas that you would want to measure user behavior to know if they are getting value out of your app and actually coming back to use it over time. So definitely you can start off by looking at things like user acquisition. These can be understood in the tool cards that we have over here. Basically, how many signups are you getting on like a daily or weekly basis, and also trying to find out what channels lead these users to come in. Like what Jess has mentioned earlier, acquisition as well as engagement naturally lead to retention. So definitely we also want to take a look at how are users getting activated in your app? How are they discovering the aha moments? How are they getting the habit moments? And that's where you would be able to try and understand things like how many percentage of your users you are able to activate over like the last 30 days. If you want to take a look and see which particular types of features that you have in your app that may serve a bunch of different types of user personas, which ones do they latch onto the most, you would also be able to understand this as a whole. All right. And definitely when it comes to user engagement in the context of a video streaming platform, we will also want to understand this in the terms of how long it takes someone to make the first video watch, and also how long are they taking to watch on average as a whole. Over here, what we have is this retention curve, which tells us how many of our users are coming back and how long do they actually stay around for. Now, retention is a very useful way for us to understand product market fit because it tells us firstly, whether we are able to create value of our users, and also secondly, what types of users do we have that are sticking around. In my context of this Mixtube video streaming platform, retention would look like repeat users who come back and watch the video and then come back to watch another video again. So when I create my retention report, what I want to see over here in this curve, I'm trying to understand this returning behavior in two aspects. Firstly, out of all of those users that I've managed to acquire and make that first video watch over here, how many of them are they actually coming back over here to watch over again? All right. Second thing that I also can understand immediately would then be how long does it actually take for these users to come back? So definitely you will be able to see how many users come back in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, so on and so forth. Definitely retention and time frames would differ based on what types of products you would have. If you do have a video streaming platform like this where users tend to have habits and a lot of stickiness happening fairly frequently, you would want to try and understand retention in a daily kind of context. Whereas for like more business kind of facing software, you would consider looking at retention in terms of weekly time units instead. So we can see over here that retention kind of stabilizes a little bit after like 30-day period, where it kind of hovers a little bit below the 10% retention rate over here. All right. And I can use this as a benchmark. What I want to do next is to then better understand what are the types of users who come back, which types of users are sticking around. And now I can then go into a little bit more of an advanced analysis question where I want to know what types of user personas do I have that retain better than others. So what I can do is ask, is there, among the different types of videos that I have on my platform, is there a particular type of video that users like more or not? So what I can do, I've already created some example user groups. For example, my Bitcoin enthusiasts and my comedy watchers over here. What I can do is to select these two different personas that I have created, and immediately I will be able to see which particular personas tend to have a better retention than average. Over here, you will be able to see in the legend. So it seems like comedy watchers over here tend to be better retained for the first 30 days. But beyond that, it is actually the Bitcoin enthusiasts who take over. So with this understanding, what I can do is try to understand, all right, now that I know these two particular user segments tend to have a lot of stickiness, pretty good user fit in that sense, is there a way I can use this information to influence my marketing and my campaigning strategies to try and bring more of such users in, such that I grow my active user base accordingly? All right. So now that you have this basic understanding of using retention to understand who comes back, let's talk about it, from the flip side. Is there anything that you can do to try and understand about users who dropped off after like their first watch and those who never returned? These people who tried the app once and then disappeared are known as your churn users over here. And you would want to understand what types of value were they actually unable to retrieve from your app. So when you collect data around product usage and user analytics, the data can tell you whether users are getting value from your platform, but it can also tell you if users are not able to find the content that they want. So first thing that we can do is to take a look at how these users are reacting to the videos then. firstly over here by measuring how are they reacting to these videos. First thing that I have over here is I want to measure how many times someone is liking a video. That is what I can do out of the box, where I can see how are these users performing. If I want to compare these in comparison to users actually like hitting the dislike button instead, I would be able to also select something like a dislike over here to know among all of my user base who watch videos, how many of them like 85.18% versus how many of these users actually issued a dislike button instead. All right. So with this insight, what I can do is to try and deep dive and understand, hey, for users who actually like or dislike any particular video, what is the content that they enjoyed versus what did they not, right? So I can definitely use this again to understand, is there a particular hashtag or video category tagged to the video that this person like or dislike on, so that I know which particular content tends to draw more users, get users engaged, and bring them coming back more often. So if I break down something like this over here with my video category, I would then get an immediate ranking that tells me which particular types of videos gives me the best engagement versus which types of videos tend to be like less popular or not. These can influence me to design how users get onto watching their very first video. Is there something that I can use to kind of tweak and put on like the first page or in the recommendation schedule for these users or not? All right. So now let's also take a little bit of a closer look at someone watching a video on its own. We understand product market fit as users engaging and retaining. We have a previous understanding of user retention over here. What we also want to do is, while these users are engaged, are they actually watching frequently enough? For example, over a 60-day period or over like a 90-day period, I do have users coming back, but I want to make sure that my product is becoming more and more important to them. So I want to know, for these users who come back, are they watching just like once? Are they watching twice, 3 times, or 10 times? What I can do is to try and visualize this over here in terms of how frequently someone is actually watching a video by once again selecting watch video over here and then getting something like a distribution curve that tells me, all right, where are my users actually falling on this usage spectrum? And I can also get a little bit of a better idea of understanding who is reusing my ad more often for its core value. For example, this is the average distribution usage that I'm seeing. Is it going to be higher or lower for those Bitcoin enthusiasts or for those commodity watchers that I had previously? I can always ask again in the context of those users, are they actually more sticky, more engaged compared to my average user over here? I would then be able to try and understand this a lot more quickly and compare and contrast different types of user groups, so I can get a little bit closer to understanding which types of users tend to be stickier, which types of users tend to retain better, and accordingly route my product strategy that way. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and pass over to Jaz to wrap up for the rest of today's session.
Thank you so much, Xinlin. I was answering a few of the questions in the chat, but I just want to close off with some key takeaways. So I'll share my screen, and we have said in the chat, we'll be sharing the slides with you within 24 hours as well. So please do not worry about that. But ultimately, these are the key takeaways. It's a milestone that can make or break your scale up or your startup or even just your idea. It can be found in a scientific way. Please, please, please understand that you deserve more than just a gut feeling. And it is focused on retention, the aha moment, the habit moment, but also optimizing those key user journeys, that time to value. A product analytics just plays a part in guiding you, in helping you be data informed, in helping you have a place to answer those questions and get the data as opposed to guessing. And once you figure it out, fundraising gets much easier, building a team gets much easier, knowing where to invest the funds that you do raise gets a lot easier. So we want to encourage you around that and say that it is possible through the reports that Xinlin has showed. I also want to share some freebies and goodies that we have that will support you in this. We do have a Mixpanel startups program that not only gives you credit to use our platform, so everything that Xinlin's shown you, you'll be able to have access to unlock for yourself. But we also have a product analytics certification, which we did with the product school, which stands separate to really give you an induction into product analytics and what it could look like for your startup. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. Yeah, I'm happy to stick around to answer more questions as well. But if we do need to stop, that's absolutely fine. You know where to find us all and you'll get the slides. Okay. Awesome. Let me just have a look.
There you go. Some reason why I was literally had to hit refresh. Well, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Jaz and Xinlin. That was super helpful. Definitely a lot of great insights for anyone that not only has perhaps an idea, but is a little bit further on and is really trying to get together that good understanding of product market fit. I particularly like the insights you gave around basic, intermediate, and advanced, depending on the stage you were, certainly as a startup. Very, very smart. And the demonstration was super, super helpful as well. So as we mentioned, both in the conversation and Jaz mentioned in the chat, we will be sharing the slides, sending a follow-up email with those benefits that Jaz shared around their startup program to you all. Please look out for an email that will be coming out within the next 24 hours. I believe there might also be a small little survey in there because, again, if it's about getting data, we'll really appreciate you taking some time to kind of complete that survey report. And of course, if you have any other further questions, please feel free to drop us an email. Thank you all so much for joining, and hopefully we'll see you soon at a future event. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.